So, like we mentioned before, you've played with all sorts of people. You know, Jay Z, Erykah Badu, Queen Latifah. I mean, if anyone wants to go to Ella's website and just look at the list, it's phenomenal. It's crazy. So, one thing I'm really curious about is you've played with all sorts of artists. What does a good rehearsal look like, and what does a bad rehearsal look like with these artists?
Mhm. Um, a bad rehearsal looks like people not showing up on time, not learning the music, um, and this sort of goes into a bad band, not just a rehearsal, an unwillingness to respect each other and to serve the music, having an ego and just, you know, letting everyone know how bad you are, how killing you are by your gospel chop fills or your drop two wiggly woo minor nine voicings that you're trying to impress someone or your reharms on the keys or whatever. There's a time and a place for all of that. But I'd say that's a bad rehearsal when people just aren't listening and communicating and they're not there to help the music and the artist. They're there to let people know, who they are as a musician and how bad they are. Um, that's a bad rehearsal. I mean, a good one is the opposite of that. Just people showing up on time or early, um, learning the music, just being prepared, listening, just having a good attitude to serve the song and back up the artist. Like the D'Angelo touring band from the 2000s. They were called D'Angelo and the Soultronics. And that's when it was Questlove and Pino Palladino and Spanky. I mean, I could list the whole band, but that was, I mean, the tightest, if not one of the tightest, the tightest, in my opinion, touring bands. In addition to a James Brown, I know everybody's frothing at the mouth to let me know other bands they think are tight. But to me, that band just, you could listen to any show. Nobody overplayed. It was just the groove and music. And it was so wildly funky. It makes you like feral, to me, that's the kind of music that I want to play. I want to be the kind of musician that can go 5 million miles an hour but chooses to roll the window down and just go 30 like this. I don't need to let you know I can burn the wheels off. Unless it's time to go there. And that also gets into, I've talked about this before, but musical generosity, and not just in teaching, but by generously giving other people space to bloom, in a certain part in the song or whatever. And just musical maturity, to play the parts. If you ask a lot of seasoned older musicians, they'll kind of, what do I need to do to make it and blah, blah, blah. They'll say, show up on time. Matter of fact, no, show up early, learn the music, be a really good hang, and don't have an ego, play the parts. I mean, most people are going to tell you stuff like that. That's what I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what do you think is like what when someone goes into rehearsal, like what are the optimal conditions for you as far as like, because it sounds like you've talked about you've been thrown into situations like the Queen Latifah gig and other stuff. What does like optimal prep look like for you for a touring gig?
I guess enough time with the music to figure out, do I have to build patches? What am I using for pedals, guitars, gear? Enough time to really think about that. And it's a lot more complex than you may think because it may be like, well, I'm going to Europe and we don't have a guitar tech. So I'm responsible to carry everything. So do I want to carry, an Anvil flight case pedal board? Or do I want to put, a Kemper or a Line 6 in my backpack and go that way? So there's like preparation in terms of things like that. So there's the gear programming aspect, I'd say. Spending a lot of time with the music and engaging with it and really thinking about things. Sometimes there's no guitar in the music and you have to make decisions. Where do I go? Do I double a keyboard player? Do I lay out for the first verse? Do I do sound effects? Do I just play rhythm and stay in the cut? Do I double the bass player? A lot of stuff, especially all my years touring in Erykah Badu's band, there wasn't a lot of guitar on the records. So I constantly had to make decisions, you know. So just the prep in order to have enough time for things like that. But I got to be honest with you, I've had plenty of scenarios where there's been no rehearsal and no prep. And I've just had to figure it out on the spot, period. And it's been some of the deepest musical experiences. My first gig with Erykah was live, this program called VH1 Soul Stage. And it was 2008. The band had been together. They were in Nairobi, I think. And they were coming back. I had never played with them in my life. I wasn't sent a set list. I knew some of Erykah's music, so I listened to a lot, but I didn't know if things were in different keys, segues, remixes. And I got live on stage and, it was a lot. It was like like an MTV Unplugged. And there's this tune called Annie, like Annie Don't Wear No Panties.
Oh,
And
I know that video. I know that. That's the famous one, right?
Yeah, that's me on guitar. She called that tune out, and I remember she said like something like, like something about like that's that funk or something. And I put my guitar up to my ear, like sorry, I was almost about to swear. I was like, what key are we in? I think it was C or D flat or something. Okay, let's go. And I mean, I'm really proud because I thought like I came up with some amazing parts, but it was completely in the moment. It wasn't rehearsed. It just was you are thrown in the fire, and what are you going to do right now in this moment? So sometimes moments like that are just so beautiful and memorable because you're not overthinking things. It's just it's forcing you to really listen because you don't know what's going to happen next. Yeah.
I had no idea about that. That's the famous one where she's wearing the tight red shirt, right? And she has the big afro.
That was my first gig with her ever. Yeah, it was
that's wild.
2008. Yeah.
I watched that when it was on TV.
Yeah, that's me.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
God, I can't imagine that pressure.
Yeah.
Did you feel pressure at all? Like when I'd be losing my mind.
I was excited more than anything. We like did it somewhere in Brooklyn, and I've always admired Erykah. If I could just give her flowers for a second. I mean, and it's funny, I didn't even say this. My friend Michelle Indeggiocello said this, but she's like, Erykah's the antidote. She's like, Erykah's like not even the artist. She's like, she is the art. Like she's just art. And I just thought that was such a brilliant way that Michelle described it. She's just art. I mean, she's just this, I don't know, this force, this musical force as a a person, a musician, an artist, or whatever. I've always admired her. So I was just so excited to play. And I remember when I was on tour with Queen Latifah, they would Erykah's band would go on after us, and I would watch every show. I just wanted to be in that band more than anything in the world, and my dream came true. Because it's kind of like, this is a really weird description, but it's kind of like an R&B jam band, just in the sense that there's a lot of like vamps, like James Brown. You don't know what tune she's going to call, things are really tight, but they're also just like laid back and you're just kind of listening, and there's no Pro Tools playback where you're playing over pre-recorded tracks. It's 100% live and in the moment. And it's my favorite band I've ever played in to this date.
What was Erykah Badu like as a band leader?
So fun. I mean, what was really cool about her, she was almost like a Miles Davis or something. Like she just wanted the musicians to be themselves. And I would like reinvent myself. One tour I was kind of on some like Jeff Lee Johnson, just doing a lot of like distortion with heavy, heavy chorus and, some really angular intervals. And um, for those that don't know the guitar player, Jeff Lee Johnson, check him out. He's passed, but he was a Philly legend. So, I'd be on something like that. Other tours, I just really want to lock in with the rhythm and be on some more, almost more Wah Wah Watson meets James Brown. Just really like, not sound effecty, but just locked in with the bass and the drums. And she, I don't know, I don't want to compliment myself, but I know that she values what I do in her music and she values, the musicians in her band and just like Miles did, just let people be themselves. Erykah's not like it needs to be 100% like the record. And where's that sound from? It's like jazz just in the sense that it's a moment in time and it'll never be the same again. Not to say that we don't play the same song, but yeah, she just, and speaking of, unprepared musical situations, last summer I was in Nashville and I was working with the orchestra and they were on tour and they were playing the arena in Nashville. And she texts me and she's like, "Sweetie, do you want to come play the arena with us tonight?" And I was like, "Erykah, I don't have a guitar pick, pedals, and amp." I'm like, I haven't played your show. Like, I don't even know the show anymore. And I'm just like, what time do I need to be there? And I just showed up. It was kind of a flex, but I put a message on Instagram and I'm like, Badu asked me to play this arena. Can I borrow someone's guitar and pedals? And my friend RJ, who's, an amazing person and guitar player, showed up at the studio. We had no sound check, no line check. And I literally got up in front of an arena full of people and played an Erykah Badu show, not having played with her in years, not knowing if there were any transitions, and just it was like my first show playing with her, just listening. Now she rehearses. I'm not saying she's not prepared by any means. I mean, when we would go on tour, like we would rehearse in Dallas for a couple of weeks, but that was like another moment where I'm just listening and, and getting in where I fit in.
So I've never really played with a band in the sense of like that jams that much, if that makes sense. Because I mostly come from rock, indie, punk, and that's very like you play your part, you play it tight, you know, let's go, let's do it, right? And so, what do rehearsals look like in a more like I don't want to say improv, but like I guess flow. I know it's kind of a weird word to use here, but that kind of music. What does a rehearsal look like with those that kind of style of music, as opposed to say like, if I'm playing, I played in a Police cover band for a little bit. Like I had to play those parts, right? And those parts are what I have to play. What is it? What is the difference between those kind of rehearsals?
Well, you have to understand, like Erykah's stuff. I mean, we are playing records. We're playing her songs, so it's not just like freeform, Spinal Tap, freeform jazz exploration odyssey. It's not Fish Gamehenge or anything. I mean, it's a lot of just playing the tune. But she might be like, I want to remix it. Let's do something different. You know. And so we would just groove and come up with stuff. I remember I came up with an arrangement. She had a song. I forget if it was Kiss Me or Booty, but it was one of them. And I started playing this wah wah part, this rhythm that made it into quartet, like that, And so the whole arrangement changed just because I was purposely putting the wah wah scratches on the backbeat instead of I was just doing it just turned into, and the whole groove changed, So there's a lot of just just vibing, just grooving on stuff, and just seeing where it leads, But other than that, yeah, I mean, we're rehearsing the songs. you know?